All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakakwadash. Giving double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. Let's come back with another lesson. Saw this article and, just saw the blatant contrast, so to speak, between the Israelites, the true Israelites, and Esau Edom, man. You know, because at the same time, you got these deportations, raids going on. You got ICE, snatching up the northern tribes, shipping them off, as well as Levi. I saw some videos of Levi getting rounded up. So, this man is coming down on the tribes. But at the same time, you got so-called white Afrikaners coming to the U.S. at the same time, man. It says first Afrikaners arrived in U.S. under radically reshaped refugee program. So the refugees were admitted to the U.S. after an executive order from President Trump under the expedited and unconventional process for the U.S. to refuge resettlement program. It says the first group of white South African refugees arrived in the U.S. on Monday under President Trump's executive order mandating they be prioritized for resettlement, even as the border refuge program remains largely on hold. So, you see it, man. Man, putting it in your face. Says the 59 Afrikaners underwent expedited reviews that took months, were brought to the U.S. on a government-chartered flight, and they flew them over, man, and were greeted at Dulles International Airport by federal officials. All unconventional steps for refugee resettlement program, which can take years to process. So at the same time, this man is trying to make America so-called white again, basically. So, let's see. I looked up resettlement, and we're going to get into Psalms 83, basically. It says resettlement is the process of helping refugees move from a country where they sought protection to another country that has agreed to admit them and grant them permanent residence. So, hey man, this man putting it in your face. Really, they hate the tribes, man. That's it. So this is the book of Psalms 83. Chapter 2, it says, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult, causing a ruckus, man. Coming on TV saying, we got to get rid of these people. These people are detriment to the country. They causing all kind of problems. If it weren't for them, crime would be lower. It says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. So, they're putting it out in the forefront that they hate Jake, man. Says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. So, crafty counsel, man, constantly going behind the scenes, coming up with different ways to knock the Israelites down. You had in the 80s, 90s, you had crack, not to mention slavery, Jim Crow. Now, you have an all-out war going against the northern tribes, man. Oh, not to mention how they did Gad. So they have taken crafty counsel against our people and consulted against our hidden ones. diseases, everything, man. Putting Jake in poverty. Says they have said, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." Going through slavery, completely wiping your memory away of who you are, and hiding it from you. You know, painting the images over. As is spoken of in the book of First Maccabees. Uh, the heathen had, roughly paraphrased. They covered the faces of the judges. Um, let's see. Verse 5, it says, "For they have consulted together with one consent." So all of them on the same page. It says, "They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, first and foremost, which Donald Trump is definitely an Edomite." It says, "And the Ishmaelites, the so-called Arabs, uh, Moab, you know, so-called Chinese, the Hagarenes, Gabal, Ammon, so-called Japanese, and Amalek, which is another sect of the Edomites, the so-called Ish people, small hats, Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre, African, Hamites. Says Assur also is joined to them. They have Hoplin, the children of Lot, Selah. So man, all these nations against the Israelites. And when the time comes, when Yahweh Shem Shai bring forth this judgment upon this nation as well as other nations. And when I say this nation, I'm speaking of America, aka Babylon the Great. All the rest of these nations are gonna feel it, because they're enemies of Yahweh Shem Shai, basically. So, matter of fact, let's go back to this article, man, and just see, look at the faces, man. These are the faces that they're letting people come in, and versus the faces of the people they kicking out. So, this is just a quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai. Just to bring light on who your enemies are. Whether you believe it or not. The words of Yahweh Shem Shai are faithful and true, and will stand strong in the end, man. So with that being said, we want to constantly give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Akakwadash. Shalom.